Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks very much, Ryan. And I will jump straight into it. I know I have a few persons here who are netball savvy. So I know there's not a lot that I will be teaching you, but for those who are not as netball savvy, I will just introduce to you some of the focuses that we have here at the National Sports Council. So, what is netball? It is a fast and exciting game, one that is, you can see all the skillfulness of the athletes who perform it. Therefore, there's lots of athleticism in this game. It is one of fair contests. The game is of two teams, 7 players each, and they try to gain the ball for their advantage. Um, It consists of lots of running, jumping, throwing, catching, as each team tries to move the ball to their side of the court, while the opposing team tries to intercept or intervene and stop them from doing so. The team with the most goals score. Um, as you can see from the picture here, um, the jumping, the athleticism that is required to play this game. So, for those who think that netball does not require a lot, you will see going forward it is quite a technical game. I also want to let you know about the length of the game. At international level, the game is played for four 15-minute quarters. At the regional level, it is also played at four 15-minute quarters, and this was recently introduced during the high school competition in the region. Normally, the Caribbean Under 16 tournament plays for four 10-minute quarters. Our national domestic league, the Division 1 and 2, they also play for four 15-minute quarters, and all the lower divisions for four tens. The secondary school, they also play for four 10 minutes. And at the primary school level, where we are in control of the time, we modify um, yearly, I should say, based on the discussion that we would have with the PE teachers going forward into a competition. So that is at our discretion, really. The rules that we would focus on at primary school is the footwork infringement, the 3 second infringement, obstruction, contact, and replaying of the ball. These are not the only rules. There are many more rules. However, at the junior level, and what we focus on during our competition is the footwork to make sure the child is not running or making extra steps. The 3 second rule, which um, sometimes we allow for a little bit more because we know children are apprehensive when they start to play the game. But as we go on, we do try to enforce that rule. Obstruction, 3 feet defense, contact. So we want the kids to know that it is supposedly a non contact sport. Obviously, the game has evolved quite a bit over the years to be a little more um, contact, and replaying of the ball, that is quite discretionary because we don't know sometimes if a person has control of the ball. But again, as with children, we expect that they would have some fumbles going forward. So those are the rules we try to enforce at the primary level. So moving on now to the fundamental skills. We know that running, jumping, catching, throwing, these are the skills necessary for most ball sports. We know that most sports we have to run, we have to jump, we have to catch, we have to throw. And as I introduced the sport earlier, these were the skills that you saw netball is running, jumping, catching, and throwing. But netball also has some specific skills involved. Jumping and landing is one. Again, I mentioned when I previously introduced jumping and landing is a priority. Um, Jumping allows you to gain advantage over your opponent. Um, and that for me personally, I emphasize all my juniors jump because it helps a great deal with the footwork. So when you come to doing the footwork, it is almost flawless when you have the jump preceding it. We also emphasize soft landings. This is to absorb any shock that may come, because if you're jumping very high, you can imagine that coming back down, there will be some shock. So we always emphasize um, landing softly, and this will help to reduce any um, injuries on the knees or the ankles, etc. Coordination. Coordination is vital to this game. Um, Obviously, it's a combination of various components, hand-eye coordination, which help your reflexes, understanding the biomechanics of your body. Example for when a shooter is shooting, you know where your hand is supposed to be. You know that your elbow joint is a hammer joint. So you need to understand certain things like that um, in going forward. Balance. We need balance for good posture. This is a skill that most people need to have. I'm not saying every single person, but you should have balance. Netballers jump and land in various positions. You land awkwardly, and you will need to recover quickly in order to pass off a ball. If you have shifted position, you need to recover in order to proceed with the game. And I will emphasize that, especially shooters, they need to have excellent balance, because they are the ones who will need it, because they're the one who is finishing that particular shot, or if they get the ball out of, I don't know, awkwardly or whatever, they need to recover to get that shot off. Agility. We know that netball requires lots of change of direction. We know that persons will be trying to outrun, outmaneuver, outshift their opponents. So agility is vital as well. And speed basically is self-explanatory, because you will need to outrun someone, and it also helps with the speed of the game. So if we go to the specific skills now, core skills, I've categorized them as footwork, catching and passing, movement skills, and shooting as the core. Game skills will then move over to attacking, defending, and generally the rules are supposed to be taught throughout the game. Okay, so I'm going to delve in now to the core skills. The footwork. We have two kinds of footwork that are normally seen in the game. Um, 1-2 footwork and 2 feet footwork, 2 foot, and that's called simultaneous landing, really. However, as I said before, jumping and landing is important. So the 1-2 footwork comes as one foot comes before the other, as this picture here is demonstrating. This person here is running onto the ball, and they have jumped and they've landed one, and this foot here will go in front of the other, and they will stop. Okay. Simultaneous landing, where you land both feet at the same time. This allows you then to move any foot. So one foot will become your pivot foot, and one foot will become your landing foot. I should have noted here that this foot is this person's landing foot, and this foot will not be allowed to leave the ground while the ball is still in the person's hand. So I always emphasize practice, 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 because that is the only way that this particular skill you will become good at this skill. I have a short video here to show you. This is one that I would have used a few years ago in teaching the footwork, the 1-2 footwork. It is very simplistic in nature. So this is in encouraging the children to jump and land 1 2. So it is about 40 seconds long, but I think you will understand what I was saying about the 1 2 footwork. Just bear with me. So we see the 1 2 footwork there being displayed at its very simple, at the most simple form. The girls were going through footwork. The young lady at the very end, she was not getting it at the time. So I did decide to go in front of her and stand because she was throwing her body ahead of her feet, well, her upper torso ahead of her feet. So she was losing balance, which is one of the things that we would have spoken about earlier. And by standing in front of her, she was able to put herself back somewhat and do the footwork as it was intended to. There was some reinforcement there, positively, I may add, and she was able to tell me what she was doing wrong at the time, right? So moving on now to pivoting. I find that pivoting is kind of beating our kids these days, but pivoting allows the player to rotate on their landing foot to face the direction of their intended pass. Um, I always say pivot on the balls of your foot. Don't not on the heel because then it can um, force some dragging. So we want to be on the balls of our foot. The player is allowed to take as many steps around with that pivot foot, and depending on how you land, it also allows you to keep your balance. The body should be upright as much as possible, and I always tell my kids, do not spin on your foot like a superhero or like you're dancing. So you want them to always know that they're just turning enough to face the direction that they want to pass. Okay? And that too requires lots and lots of practice. So at some point, you will put the footwork and the pivoting together. Catching and passing. As indicated in the beginning, netball is about catching the ball. Catching the ball is vital. You can't have the ball rolling around. You want the ball, so you must catch it. So this requires the coordination, hand-eye coordination. So we always ask our children to extend their arms forward, make a small W, and keep the hands soft. And when that ball gets to your hand, you're going to grab, pull, snatch that ball towards your body. Again, I just want you to witness a brief video of me going through with my youngsters the catching. And this video is just about the catching and not about the passing. So we see some of the issues that we will have with passing to youngsters, but again, I wanted to enforce the balance and getting your hands out to the ball, grabbing and snatching and bringing it back to you. And this is just the beginning. As I say, this is quite basic because when we're passing, there's a little more that we would have added to this. But just to understand, grabbing that ball and bringing it to your body, your W's, your hand-eye coordination, etc. Again, much practice needs to be involved in getting this technique correct. Moving on. So here we're emphasizing the W. This one may not look too much like a W to you, but it's a W. That person is waiting to receive that ball. Their fingers are spread, getting to the W. In this picture, which gives a more realistic look, we notice that the young lady's hand is out and she is about to grab that ball and pull it to her. And that is important as well, getting your hand out because you don't want the ball to meet you at your chest. You want to be in control of the ball before it gets to you. Okay. When we go to our passes, then at this primary level, there are a few passes that we focus on. The chest pass is one that um, we use a lot. It's a relatively short pass because of the biomechanics of the arm. That pass will not generally go very far unless you're absolutely strong. And so that is used for a short pass, and it goes from the chest to the chest, right? We also focus on the bounce pass, which is a short pass, fairly precise and usually used by shooters or attacking players going into a shooter. It is usually put in a space where someone can go get it. But as I said, it's fairly precise and it's short, and it is one of those very deceptive passes. So, hence, used mainly in a shooting circle. The overhead pass is a long pass. It is a very strong pass, and it comes from over the head where the ball is held in both hands, and there is much strength behind this. And the passer would be using their legs as well to get this pass to where they need to go. So there's much momentum built in getting this pass to go where we need to go. And then the shoulder pass, which is the more popular of the passes, come from the shoulder of the dominant arm. It is a strong pass and it goes for long, very, very long distances. Um, Again, there is much footwork and such associated with this pass, and there is footwork associated with all the passes actually. So these are just some of the highlights of the various passes. These are what we focus on at the primary level. As it pertains to movement, though, as you get accustomed to doing your footwork and your passes and such like, then we try to emphasize movement onto the ball. Um, the ability, running onto the ball, the ability to run towards a moving ball, catch it, and apply the footwork. They're all, footwork is going to be vital in everything we do as it pertains to movement. And that jumping action that I spoke of earlier is going to be essential in stopping the run. When you catch the ball, jump to stop yourself from running. Angle running, meaning running in diagonals, running backward, running wherever you need to go to get that ball. So we also need to develop much patterns of running backward, forward, sideways, diagonal, vertical. Can't run vertical, but um, various patterns of running. And then we have this side step, which the ability to shuffle or run sideways for the ball. And you will see a lot of defenders using a shuffle, as they usually work in a very small space. Therefore, they tend to move for short distances, employing this sidestep or shuffle. And in the picture that we can see here with the children, we can see this young lady who is the goal shooter. She is running, I am assuming, into a space to receive the ball. Whereas this young lady, she's employing a sidestep to intercept this ball. We also have another young lady here running. She's running at an angle, a wing attack. I assume she's going around the circle to possibly help this in case this ball is deflected. She is running. So netball really encompasses lots and lots of angles. So we move on now to the shooting. Shooting is, as I mentioned before, the end, the end of that particular play. And so everyone looks to the shooter to score the goal. But shooting can become a little technical, as it is not as easy as it looks, because there is no help from a backboard or anything of the sort to help that ball to go in. So you must be precise. And some people are just natural born shooters and they will get that ball there without any help. However, while we're teaching, there are two kinds of footwork or stance associated with shooting. We in the Caribbean use what we call the Caribbean shot, which is if your right hand, your right foot is slightly forward, your body weight forward. If your left hand did, your left foot is forward. There's also the European shot, and that is where feet are shoulder width apart or one slightly ahead. In this picture that we can see here, this is really a European shot. In this here, as we can see, this young lady is fairly straight and square from this angle that we are looking at. But when we talk about the stance, the body is facing the pole. More oftentimes than not, your body is facing the pole, your feet are facing the pole, the foot of the dominant hand slightly forward, and the body weight is forward as well. And when you are taking that shot, the momentum is built from the knees. This man here, he is about to take a shot and he has bent his knees, and this force is going to come from the knees and it's going to go right through his arm to make that shot. Okay, that's the stance. We move on to the grip. Now the ball pretty much sits comfortably in your, I don't want to say palm because that may be a little bit misleading. However, in the back of your palm but into your fingers, it sits comfortably there in your dominant hand. The ball is placed high overhead, the elbow is facing the pole. The offhand is there to help balance the ball. Balance the ball. Okay? And when you're shooting, the force after coming from your knees right through comes from your dominant hand only. So to have a better representation of how this shot looks live, we have two pictures here. We can see the young lady, dominant hand under the ball. It's in her palm, but you can see her fingers extended around it. The offhand is holding the ball in place for her. That shot will still come off of the dominant hand, even though the other hand is on the ball. And when we go over to the next picture, we have what may seem a little technical representation of what it looks to shoot. how it looks to shoot the ball. So we see that the point of application, this is where the force is going to come. The direction of the ball, it is facing forward. Where she's going to shoot this ball is here. And then how high she has the ball. Okay, that is the grip. And then there's the follow through. The follow through is what happens after the ball leaves your hand. Um, the release is comes through the wrist, and the follow through the finger, follow it through the fingers. The fingertips will be the last thing to leave the ball. While we're teaching, sometimes some coaches will say, tell the ball bye bye. So you can have a visual in your mind what your hand should look like after it is released from your hand. So we should have a seemingly waving motion. Okay, and then we move on to um, the core skills associated with shooting. And as you would imagine, the ball will be coming from the opposite end of the court more oftentimes or not. So therefore, our shooter will need to employ the jumping, the landing, the footwork, the pivoting, the catching, and definitely the shooting or the passing. And all of these things must be used in order just to take that one shot, one single shot. Okay? So, hence, as I was saying before, every single player on the court will need to know how to do every single skill that we would have mentioned before. So then we will have the attacking skills and the defending skills. And attacking skills usually refer to anything that is on the offensive for us, and defending as it speaks for itself. So things you will need to employ during the center pass throw-ins, and those again, agility work, meaning dodging, faking, speed work, agility, things like rolling. While we're defending, we're thinking about things like interception, sorry, space marking, shadowing, and that is a movement, rebounding, and we also have person to person marking, which will encompass hand eye coordination, peripheral vision, and anticipation. So these are all things that, as we get better with our game, that we will start using in order to play the actual game. We have the positions on the court, and um, this is this is quite easy to go through, but um, I think that we will need to maybe go through the positions another time, because netball is a very limited game in terms of positional play. But we do want to encourage our youngsters to play more than one position, and that would allow them to have a better understanding of the game. Right?
Miss Leacock, if I may,
Mm-hmm.
what we can do, because that is a pretty important aspect of it. So you can go on to the next slide. But what I'll do is for everyone in the room, I am we have about 3 minutes left. But as soon as this one shuts down, I'm just going to reopen the room so everybody can come back in on this same. We're going to use the same ID, and we'll come back in the room, and then Miss Leacock, you will just go back to the court, and you hit the court, and then go forward to where you stop. You have
Oh,
2 minutes remaining.
okay. Thanks, Ryan. Um, so some game development tips that I came up with as a coach. These are things that I realize have worked for me in my coaching. So we're always going to make the sessions fun for the young players. Um, there are always things to say to them. There's always at some point a little competition going on, because kids love competition. So we would make the sessions fun, and we always start with simple drills, like the drills I had started that you would have seen the videos on. Very, 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 very simple before we move on to anything complex. Um, I think that children need to build on the knowledge. So simple to complex always. Um, Use various and creative drills to help develop the desired skill. You can come up with any drill. It doesn't have to be something you see anywhere. You just have to envision what you want and build something to get what you want. It is it is um, it is something that the children like, and it will also help you with your creativity for coaching. And I believe that positive reinforcement goes a long way. In the video earlier, the young lady, when she did what she did, and I gave her a simple high five, that went a long way for her. So she's encouraged to continue. Um, and always saying what is good. I mean, it's not, they don't always do what you want, but you can say what you need to say and then always compliment, especially when they do something right. And I believe that the competencies in the core skills and an understanding of the objective of the game, they will be able to play the game. You just need to understand why you are playing it, and we know that we want to score a goal, know your footwork, catching, passing, and you will be able to play the game. The core skill as the core skills improve along with the development of the specific skills, balance, coordination, etc., improvement in the game will be recognized. So we work on the simple stuff first, and the simple meaning the core stuff, footwork, catching, passing. Children will be able to play the game, and as they develop, we will wing defense. They they are relegated to 2/3 of the court. However, they are not allowed to go into this circle. They're not allowed to go into this circle at all. The goal attack, who assists the shooter with scoring goals, she is also relegated to 2/3 of the court, but she is also allowed into the circle because shots can only be taken from within this circle. Okay. Then we have the wing defense. Obviously, these um, that was on that side of the court with the red team, and this now the goal defense. She does not. She is relegated to 2/3 of the court as well on the opposite side of the court. So you will never or should never see a goal defense from the same team up in this third as with her goal shooter. And that goes for the wing defense as well. So the wing defense here with the red team, she is relegated to this transverse line here. Goal defense, transverse line here. I am sorry, I touched something there. I will have to go over. There was apologies. There you go. Um, and the goalkeeper, she is relegated again to this side of the court with the goal shooter from the opposite end. The center, however, she is allowed to run 3/3 of the court, but she's not allowed to go in the circle. In my coaching, what I do say to my girls is never go into this circle unless you're wearing a G on your chest, which means goal, because the only thing we're doing in this circle is shooting for goals. So if you're not wearing a G on your chest, you're not going into this circle. All right. Um, we find that children tend to go offside quite a bit in the initial stages of competition. And that is somewhat expected, especially if they're not really familiar with the court. And it happens a lot when you have halftime and you switch ends. That is expected as well. But hence, I was saying earlier that we try to encourage children to play more than one position. So you shouldn't have a teach a goal shooter to play goal shooter only. They should play goal attack as well. Then they would understand what it takes to bring the ball from this part of the court into the shooter. So they build their competencies and understanding how to move in this circle. So these are two positions that can interchange, but you must teach the person how to play the game in terms of their limitations on the court. The wing attack should be able to also play wing defense because you are defending at some point on the court. Everybody becomes a defender at some point of the game. Um, on throw-ins, if the blue goalkeeper here had the ball, then this wing attack automatically becomes a defender in trying to intercept the ball from going to this side of the court. So you should teach the person how to play at least two positions. Nothing is wrong if the person is competent in playing several positions, but at least two which are corresponding. I think that that builds much awareness for the game. Um, so moving on to, as I said, the game development tips. Um, I can go over. You must make the game fun. Always start with simple to complex drills, various creative drills. Positive reinforcement is expected, really. They are children and they kind of look up to you, so you must reinforce for them positively more oftentimes or not. Um, and as I said, if they develop their core skills and they understand what the game is about, they can play it. And along with the core skills, with the other specific skills of balance, speed, coordination, etc., we will definitely see improvement in the game. All right. With that, I thank you very much for listening. And now I open the floor to any questions that you may have.
Remember, if you're having problems with your audio, you can also type your questions in the chat and I will answer them for you.
Hi, good afternoon. That was actually a really good presentation, by the way. By the way, this is Mr. Shepherd from Welch's Primary. I wanted to get some information on how to teach the children the different positions, um, help them with understanding game awareness.
Okay. For me, I personally always start with theory when it comes to positions on the court. I start with theory. Simple court like this one we have here on the blackboard. I go inside the classroom and we work on this. And I also give homework, by the way. And so that they could understand, as you said, game awareness, but also the court awareness. From there, I would take the children onto the court. We do not start with a whole game situation, never a whole game situation. And then you start with your four starting positions, which are your goal shooter, wing attack, goal attack, and center. And you develop slowly, again, simple to complex. And you walk your children through these positions, change positions. And this, at some point, you will also would have been doing some positional ID, like how we have talent ID. You would have been doing positional ID. By this time, you would have recognized who would be a good shooter or who would be a center. Usually, the person who like to run out a lot, um, and just walk them through. That is, in my opinion, the best way to teach them how to know the positions. Um, Usually, we would want tall players in the circle, so you will have a tall goal shooter, a tall goalkeeper. As I mentioned, a center, someone who likes to run a lot, very athletic, and they're usually the shortest person, maybe. Um, but start on the board theory and then take them onto the court and let them walk through. Let them play, let them practice the position before you change them, I should say, into a different position. so that they can understand not only the objectives but the position of the that they are playing. Sorry,
Okay,
does
that
that
was
help?
actually pretty informative. Thanks so much.
Okay.
Okay, I have another question here. Um, just give me a second. Let me read it so I can then put it over properly for you.
Mhm.
Okay, the national level netball. Consistent, constantly presented in the ability to play a match. The lower levels of the primary school netball competition. Has any consideration been made to tweak the rules to make it less restrictive or more fun? That Well, today's presentation was actually on grassroots netball, and the focus was not on competition. Um, you can always tweak competitions to make different changes to them to get different to bring about different things, whether it be a developmental or competitive um, endpoint that you're looking to get. But today's presentation is strictly on developing netball players, young netball players. So I hope that that helps, but that is not the best form to answer that particular question. Is thank you. Another one here. From the layman's viewpoint, it would seem that in netball, taller players automatically become goal shoots or goal keeps. What are your views on this? But that will definitely be for you, Miss Leacock.
um, in the world of sports, honestly, people desire taller players, but there are always um, variations from the norm. We have some short players who are actually quite athletic, and they do not let their minute size intimidate. Well, sorry, their minute size stop them from doing anything on the court. Um, we in the Caribbean have been we have so many short players, but at this level, we are told that we have some of the better jumpers at this level. Going on to international level, I will tell you that taller players are desired, and it is what it is. I don't think we can do a lot about our players here in the Caribbean, but at this level, it doesn't matter what size you are, what height you are, you can play. But as I go to international level, certainly tall players are the more desired players.
Just had to chat. Someone in the chat just asked if the videos will be. Go ahead.
Hello, Kathleen here. Okay, you have it on the screen. I'm seeing red teams and blue teams. That's correct. I want to
Yes.
make sure. Good. So that's wing attack. I got wing attack. Can this wing attack go down into the next third, which is another third? Okay, from
Which
that
wing
one down
attack?
to the
The
other
red
one.
one?
Yes, that one. Can it go into the other third?
This
That one.
third?
Yes, that one.
No. As I mentioned earlier, limitations in the game. Therefore, this swing attack, only two-thirds of the court. So this is how far that player can go.
Sorry, I came back in late.
Along,
I came back in
okay,
late in the second part. Sorry,
no,
that was
no
said before.
problem. So I will repeat for you then.
Yes,
The
brilliant.
wing attack and this wing defense, they are limited to this transverse line here on the court, along with this goal attack and this goal defense. They are limited to here, and vice versa. On this side of the court, they are limited to this transverse line, and here, this transverse line.
Okay, what about the center?
The center is allowed to run the entire 3/3 of the court. However, she cannot go into these two circles as these are reserved for persons with G's on their chest only, where the goal is scored.
Nice. And the last one, I know the
Hmm.
goalkeeper usually stays in the D. The goal shoot also stays in there too.
They are not limited to the circle. They are limited to this transverse,
Oh,
this transverse line here.
okay.
But at the junior level, we tend to kind of ask the shooters and the goalkeepers, if they are not too au fait with the game, to stay within the circle, because we find not having a sense of awareness of the game, they find it very difficult to get back in here where they need to take the shot.
Okay. Sorry, it's the last one, but I can ask a lot of questions. But anyway, hope I'm hugging you sure.
Go ahead.
Three. It is how many steps you can make with this ball in your hand. I don't remember you mentioning that, unless I missed something. You
You
have a
are
ball in
not.
your hand.
Mm-hmm.
When must you pass this ball?
Uh, ask the question again.
Okay. You have the ball in your hand to make a pass.
Mm-hmm.
When when is it the best time to pass the ball? I mean, like you can run with the ball for a bit, or you need to take 2 or 3 steps. I want to be exactly sure.
You are not allowed to run with the ball at all or take any real steps as in an actual step. What you are allowed to do is to step off with the ball. If you remove your landing foot off the ground, you must pass the ball before that foot can be regrounded. So
Oh,
you actually
okay.
are not allowed to take steps in the game.
Oh, okay, that's a bit more, a bit more clear there now.
Okay,
Okay, thanks.
you're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Lynn. Mr. Shepherd, you have another question?
Yes. Thanks, Gab. Some of the things that you actually asked brought out some information that I wasn't previously aware of. So that was actually useful. But my question that I had for you, you mentioned that at the highest level that taller players are more desired than the shorter ones that I guess generally would come out to the Caribbean region. Is there a methodology that the Caribbean coaches use that we at the younger age groups levels could adopt that aims to bring out the best of the qualities that we currently have to make them just as competitive, if not more competitive than the other taller players when they get up to that level? Because just saying that we don't have the tallest players, I don't feel that that should be our greatest limitation to excellence. I'm sure that there are probably other ways. So just wondering if there are ways that are currently being used by netball coaches here in the Caribbean that we as younger coaches, initial coaches for these budding netballers, we could probably utilize them to assist in the process.
Well, James, the truth is, as I said, we have great athleticism with our players, being short and all. So the things that we would want to capitalize on would be speed for sure, much agility, and again, if we have a short player that can outjump somebody who is taller, well, that is it. But
Wait, hold on 1 second. I write down while you're speaking, right? So I'm trying to keep a little note. You said
okay,
speed and agility
yes,
are
and
important
of
things to focus on.
yes,
Hmm.
and of course, jumping,
Jumping.
jumping, because we can't stretch the player, physically stretch the player, so we can't make them tall. But the things we can work on would be speed, agility, and that jumping.
Okay.
Well, that's
All
just
right.
my view, really. Another coach at another level may tell you something else, but that is just my thought.
Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Hmm.
Yes, Mr. King, I see your hand raised. You can unmute and go ahead with your question.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for an excellent presentation. Tell me something. At what point When you're coaching the little ones, do you introduce the rules of the game? Do we do it after you get OFA with the game or during while you're coaching?
I would have said earlier that rules is something that you should introduce very, very early. Um, as you're going through your footwork, for instance, children must understand why they cannot move the foot, move their landing foot, because there's an infringement on the footwork rules. So, straight off the ball, you're teaching the child they can't run with the ball because that is a rule. So you're teaching the rules as you go along. When you're doing your catching and your passing, you want to at some point emphasize passing the ball quickly because technically you only have 3 seconds to hold the ball. So that is another rule. Um, when you have your little um, games among a little rivalry, a little competition among the say they're having some team game. It may not be a netball game, but you start to emphasize you can't hit the person, you can't hit the ball while it's in their hand, things like that. So you're starting your contact rules. um, when you kind of start to introduce your defending, you're emphasizing the 3 foot rule. You can't be right under the person, marking them, that kind of thing. So as you go on, you introduce one rule or 2 rules. You don't want to give them all at one time because I know that can be extremely confusing for the child. So it should be a continuous process as you go forward, especially with the rules that you try to enforce at the grassroots level.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, I think we're all quiet. I'm not hearing any other questions or seeing any hands raised. So at this point, want to, I see Mr. Lane is waving his finger. Mr. Lane,
Yes, yes, yes. Ask a question. What is the minimum numbers that you can start the game with?
You can start the game with five
Uh-huh.
persons. That is a international standard,
Okay.
and um, just outside of this scope here, there is a variation of the game called Fast Five. So
Mm-hmm.
that is
Okay.
played with 5 players, which means there are no wings, no wing defense, no wing attack on either side.
Okay.
But minimum is 5. But at the grassroots level, you want to have as many kids involved as possible. So we tend not to want to have 5 on the court.
Okay. I got one more question. What about substitution? Is there a maximum number of substitutions?
A
I mean,
maximum
for any for youth, for seniors, youth. I just curious.
substitutions, you can sub your whole team, but
Wow.
at the allotted time.
Okay. Oh, there's a time stipulated for
So
that.
there's a time for that. Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thanks.
You're welcome.
go ahead, Mr. Shepherd.
Just a quick question based on what you brought up about the fives. Is there a particular advantage to training athletes in this particular way of playing? Like, what immediately comes to mind is like players that play futsal. There's a different skill set and mindset that is necessary to play futsal at a high level than what would be necessary for playing a full 11 aside on a bigger field. So I'm wondering if the same would apply in netball, if it's a different skill set that is involved since there are no wing players that is beneficial to the player on a holistic level, if they've been playing fives as well as the full complement of players.
Well, I can tell you that Fast Five, you will definitely have to be faster for one. Def- Definitely faster. And it takes a lot out of you, much endurance. However, players that play a lot of Fast Five tend to be more aware of the game because you have to move quickly. You have to be able to assess the game faster. So hence, I see that as much personal development for the player. But it is a game that not everybody, well, that version of the game, not everyone can go play that version of the game. It is a very, very quick um, game. And if you really want to see it, I would advise you to go to YouTube and take a look at it.
One last question. When it comes to the younger ones that I would teach in primary school, would introducing them to this fast five format help them to develop better game awareness or that kind of thing interspersed with their normal playing of netball and decision making? Because in game decision making is obviously very important as a skill.
Um, that's a good question, James. I personally have never introduced it to at this level. I think it's something you can grow into though, if
Mm.
you want to develop that game awareness. I don't think it is physically the best version of the game for young players.
Ah,
Um,
okay.
yeah, and then because children tend to do what they are taught
Hmm.
in teaching that version of the game, it may be a little difficult for them to readjust to playing with seven people if they're doing it all the time. So hence you will find, say they're playing, when you reintroduce your wings, they will play without the wings because they are so accustomed to playing without them. So personally, I don't do it, but again, it is what your goal is and how you best manage it.
Okay. All right. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
I just wanted to say thank you very much for the presentation. Ms. Leacock did an excellent job as usual, very informative. And I look forward to similar presentation in other sports.
Thank you very much. As always, the Sports Council is always endeavoring to lend assistance wherever possible. That is one of our mandates.